everybody, welcome to Love It or Shut It. And today it's our 25th episode, and it's about cultural differences in love. Since three of us are from different cultures, you're gonna hear it all. So it's me, Irina Links, here in the house with my co-host Bruno Jill, and we have a guest, Virginia. Virginia, introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a coach, and I actually coach more into helping people discover their talents and their gifts, because a lot of people, they struggle with the question, who am I? And I really have like workshops that focus on the self-discovery process. And then from there on, they develop this confidence in themselves, and then they choose jobs or a business that they love instead of staying in jobs that they're stuck and miserable, and just for paying the bills, but just igniting that passion and fire in them to have the courage to take a different path. So that's the process that I go with my coaching. And then at night I'm a singer, and then I sing in different hotels and do the entertainment here with my band, do private events. I think Monday I was on a private island. We were there with the band doing like a wedding, performing for a wedding. So you can imagine like those kind of things. So yeah,
that's beautiful.
That's in short, that's
are you gonna sing to us a little bit today at the end of the show? This is like special request.
Oh, what did you say?
Are you gonna sing to us at the end of the show, like ta-da?
Oh my goodness. Well, let's see. I need a bottle of wine. No.
Okay, I'm just gonna make the order now. They're gonna deliver by the end of the show. But yeah, it's just like something on the spot. We haven't thought about it before, and it just came to me. And I hope Virginia is gonna come up with the song that she could sing to us. A few words.
Maybe I get inspired to sing you guys.
Exactly. Maybe you get inspired after this beautiful conversation that we are going to be having.
Yeah.
But let's just dive into the cultural differences in love. And Virginia, we would love to start from you, since your marriage is different culture.
Yes.
Tell a little bit about yourself and your marriage, and anything you want to share.
Yeah. So it's funny because when I grew up in Holland, and medium small town, and but I lived in a neighborhood with a lot of cultures. And my mom is American, I'm Dutch American, but I was born in Holland and grew up in Holland. So because we lived in a very multicultural neighborhood with people from Africa, from Turkey, from Ukraine, different parts of the world, Bosnia. So a lot of also refugees were in my neighborhood and went also to my school. So I grew up with a very broad mind of, how do you say that? More open to different backgrounds and way of thinking, music, food. And because my mom was actually also a foreigner, she moved to a different country and had to learn the language from scratch, Dutch. And I was, as an American, she told me that is very difficult because of the pronunciation. The R is my R, and the G is so that's really difficult to learn that. But she managed to do it very well now, so she speaks very good Dutch. So that in mind, I was always drawn to people from different cultures, and most of my relationships were also with, the people that I courted with, the men, that they were also from other backgrounds and other countries, because I felt more connected with that I felt more that's close to home, So yeah, so years later, I was like 21. I met my husband, and he's from Aruba. And yeah, he proposed to me on his knee, like a real gentleman on the knee, and very traditional. And yeah, so I said yes. And then the whole challenge started, because yeah, it's still like a different background, even though I felt comfortable with different cultures. Getting more closer and opening yourself up, but also dealing with the different ways of thinking when you're more intimate and you're talking about different opinions about life or perspectives, feelings. It's different way of communicating and expressing yourself is very different. And yeah, so we're now married 17 years, and I think 11 years ago we moved to we moved to Aruba. So we're now I'm now on my dream destination. Aruba is just my dream come true. Living on a tropical island, from the cold and the rain to the beach, blue turquoise water, palm trees, the idyllic white sand beaches. Doing what I love, that's, I feel very grateful, to be here and sharing that with my husband. And that my husband was actually the key to where I live now. So I'm also very grateful to him that, thank you for bringing me to Aruba. So, yeah, so can't complain in that sense. So, yeah.
Such a beautiful share. Thanks so much for sharing. And it's interestingly enough, like you said, you were exposed to different cultures. And in my case, like, I grew up in a small town in Ukraine. And obviously my biggest dream was to live in a huge city. And I never even dreamed that we are gonna immigrate to America. And when we did, I still kind of felt myself as a foreigner, right? I still wanted to stick more with the people in my culture because it felt more comfortable. It felt like this is the people that I can relate mentally. I think a lot of that comes on the mentality level because like we had the same traditions, we listen to the same music, we enjoy the same things, obviously food and everything else. So when it came to me to choose the partners, I didn't even date anybody but Russian-speaking people.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was like very important because for me just to preserve the culture. And I felt like really this is, like the person that can connect with me, can understand me with everything. And that's how I ended up marrying my husband, who's Russian speaking. And very interesting enough. But the interesting part, the longer I lived in the States, because I have a friend of my girlfriend who immigrated to America a little bit earlier than me, and she used to date a lot of Americans. And I could not figure out like how does she do it? Because to me, like they were like different animals. Like I can't feel myself with them because it seems like, they don't understand what I want to express. Not only the language barrier, but just like saying, on the mental level. And they are different. Because like our culture, like I always say, right, not against anything Americans, but in our culture, if you go out with a man is gonna pay for you. Here, it's like completely different, like everything is different. It's like, oh, the woman is independent, we could do 50-50, which that would be the last date for me. But the point is that it's so different, for sure. It is different, yes. And for me, like all these things matter. Like for me, every of these details would, like add up to something that later on I could say, this person is for me, or this person is definitely not for me. So I was watching her dating all these Americans, and like she had different kind of stories, and I was like, how can you talk the same way as we talk with our culture? Because to me, it was like so unrelated. But now the more I lived in the States, right, the more I started to open myself out talking to other people. And I realized it's not about the language, it's not about where people are coming from, it's about to have like-minded people. Once you start meeting these like-minded people, then you realize, you know, it has nothing to do with the culture. Of course, like obviously it's nice because our kids, both kids speak Russian language at home. And for me, it's very important because I would love to preserve the language, and it would be awkward if they didn't speak the language, my native language. So it's, you know, like some things that like really were like, you know, checking the boxes. And I think that's exactly what I had in my mind. But obviously now it's changing, right? Because like even a lot of I see a lot of people from our culture getting married to different cultures. And you know, to me that was like the biggest point, because I was saying to myself all the time, like how their kids are gonna continue talking the language, you know, like when people are having different, you know, cultures, different languages, how are they gonna preserve and how you can keep up? Because for me it was like very important. I don't know, for me, like, you know, the more culture you carry in yourself, and it could be multicultural, doesn't matter. But for me, it's very important to have it, to have like, you know, like native language, to have native traditions, still to do things that we are doing.
Yeah. You have your own things that you want to preserve, you know, like sometimes your family traditions, and
yes,
that
like
feels more
safe
as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Bruno, coming to you. You're the only one not married here. But I'm sure you could tell something from your dating experience.
I never really had much cultural differences on the dating. The only real girlfriend I had was like my ex-girlfriend was like 5 years ago, right? And she was Portuguese like me. Like I'm half Portuguese, half Australian. But I haven't lived in Australia that much. I think I lived there for like 6 months when I was 9, 10, and then I came back to Portugal. So, but like the thing like with because for example, like I lived in Portugal all my life, then I transitioned to the UK. Now I'm in Morocco, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I go to UK, whatever. But all those cultures, they're so different. First of all, like UK people, you know, like obviously you're from Holland, right? And if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Holland there's not much.
Yeah.
Especially more to the north is very like cold.
Yes.
So in the UK it's the same thing, because the UK is even more north than Holland, right? So, you know, it's just like see, obviously like the weather affects a lot people's moods, right? So I transitioned from a place where like people are very warm, you know, and they're very outgoing and they're very warm, and you know, like they like to hug, they like to kiss and whatever, into the UK where like it's like the environment in some places is just very weird. It's just like you walk in the street and you just feel like there's something watching over you. Or like you look at people, you know, because like they seem this and they seem that, you know, and everybody does the same thing, right? Because people are more cold, people are more restricted, right? You can feel the tension in the air, even sometimes outside.
Yeah.
In Morocco is like Portugal, sunny country, right? People like to hug and like to kiss, and now it's like very, you know, like very, very smiley, you know. It's just like especially Morocco, it's a country where like, you know, like if you are a good person and you smile, there are doors that open for you much faster than even having like actually proper credentials, right? If people like the way you are, people will most probably like try to benefit you and try to make you see that I like you and I want to help you because you did the same thing, right? So it's very emotional people, right? Which there's a difference between like people in the UK, for example, that they're not that emotional, right? I'm not talking about everybody. Let's not generalize, obviously, but you know, there's probably a possibility that there's not that many super emotional people like hugging and stuff, you know, whatever. And that affects love, right? Because that's the whole point of this. That affects love. And when it comes to love itself, I haven't had many girlfriends. I had one 5 years ago, and she was Portuguese, and that wasn't Portugal. But then when I went to the UK, when I was in university in the UK, I kind of transitioned in between different cultures. I've been with a girl that she was from Malaysia, but it wasn't like much long, you know. It was like it was like obviously like I was in uni, right? So like you're always like, you know, you're with this girl, then you're with that girl, then you're with that girl, blah 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 blah, right? You're just kind of experimenting, like whatever there is to experiment, right? So even if it was just like one night or something like that, right? I had a couple nights like that with Spanish, actually English, Malaysia, actual Portuguese as well, and it's beautiful, like to see the difference in culture, right? But at the end of the day, you don't actually see the full culture, because people that come from other countries to for example, like people that came from other countries to the UK, right? They immediately have this idea of adapting to the country, right? So they can show you a bit of how they are, but they will act much more on how that society in that country really behaves like, right? So they can kind of blend in, right?
Yeah, they hold back themselves, you mean, to be more authentic and expressing themselves in the way that they have
because
you're accustomed to.
Absolutely, because obviously, like there's certain things, there are certain behaviors in dating that you probably wouldn't have in your home country that you have outside of your country, right? Because of the culture, right? So that's totally normal. But when it comes to actual dating, even the people that I've been with, right? I've been with Polish women as well. When it comes to dating, and I mean, the like the general, I saw that people like they hold back a little bit, like on how they they'll hold back on how they would really behave in their country, and they just adapt more their I wouldn't say standards, their way of being, their personality to the society that they're in. They blend the society that they're in. They blend the habits and the customs of that society with their personality. And there's certain things that they show, and there's certain things that they don't show. Right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting, really. Like, for example, like in Portugal, obviously I'm not married. What I can talk about is marriage in Portugal. You know, it's just like, you know, like back in, I don't know how it was in Ukraine, or like Eastern countries, or I don't really know how it was in Holland as well. But you know, like back in the day, like people from families, like second-degree cousins, they would all have sex with each other. You know, and like they would all have, you know, like, because that happened a lot. People from the same family, not like first-degree cousins, but like second-hand cousins, third-hand cousins, right?
Yeah.
You know, like they would have like 4 or 5 kids. You know, like.
Wow.
Yeah, so like that would kind of happen a lot. So yeah, and then like with time, I'm not quite sure how it happens now, but it's like, because like there's this stereotype, which I believe it exists, right? And you feel free to agree or disagree, please. The poorer somebody is, the more kids they have, because I think there's no financial education with those people, and I think like they kind of like have like sexual intercourse, right? They have sexual relationships, right? to because probably they're bored, right? Or like probably they want to have a boy, so he grows up and he can help, right, in the future. It's like it's very there's a sense of irresponsibility that people don't know they're really having when it comes to that stereotype, right? When it comes to, right, it's seen as a stereotype, right? The poorer you are, the more kids you have, because I think like if you that's really irresponsible, but I think it's a sense of irresponsibility that people really don't see, especially because everybody in their status, in their neighborhood, right, that reflect their status, do as well, right? So people usually, I believe, they're very pulled. They are pulled to do the same thing that every other person does, because I believe that a person who is kind of insecure in their own relationship will always tend to follow the same example of other relationships that are doing better than them in their own status, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah.
Well, Carol actually said that fascinating discussion. I'm sorry, I'm just like reading the comments because.
Nice. Okay.
Hello, Carol. Great to see you. Just quick thing before Virginia, because I know you because I was
the comments. Okay, wait.
When Bruno was talking about it, it's like, he said, oh, they are bored. And what comes to me, it's like, okay, they have more time and more fun than, like our modern society. Because when we watch the movies and, like there is a lot of sex portrayed. And then people like compare themselves. Carol said more. Yeah, sure, more. Let's do more. So the thing is, it's true. Like, we are watching movies and we see like all these romantic scenes and everybody is, like having sex. And then when it comes to real life, like poor people, like not poor people, meaning that people who are exhausted mentally, physically, because they are working crazy hours and then the man can't perform and woman is tired after, like taking care of the kids. So when Bruno was talking about, oh, they are bored, well, maybe it's part of the issue, but the other part is like, they feel relaxed, they are more fun, right? They enjoy their life to the fullest. This is something that was coming to me. Okay, Virginia, now to you.
No, it's funny how this all develops, right? Like in this conversation, like from one thing to a different perspective, and
yes.
So it's I was curious about Bruno from all the you had experience with different women from different cultures. But with which culture or background did you connect it the most with, that you feel like, okay, that girl, you don't have to be so very specific, but maybe a certain country that you feel like, oh, yeah, that's, even though they're holding back, but maybe you noticed like some similarities, how you felt more connected to that person.
So, I've been with, like, when I was in that situation, I was also in touch with a person from Portuguese like me, right? But when one person is dealing with another person in another country, you start acting like that's your country. And also, like, I think that communication just like starts like just is stronger because you're two people from the same country in another country, right? And suddenly it's like in your mind you're like, you know what, like if we were in Portugal, we would never meet each other, right? Probably because you're like 100 kilometers away from me, right? And I mean, even if I went to your city, what is the chances of me actually seeing you, right? Or we even talk, right? So I'm not saying like there's any love or whatever, or I'm not saying any of that, right? What I'm saying is like the connection becomes strong. You exchange contacts, you exchange messages if anybody needs anything, right? Because like if let's say you don't know anybody, right? and you go to a country and you meet the first ever person from your country, and you don't know anybody else. It's more than normal that like you're in a new situation, and the person may be in a new situation as well, and you can totally use each other as comfort, right? As like, oh, you want to go for a coffee, you want to go for this, and you can talk in your own language, and it's so much easier, it's so much fun, and like you can chat shit, and that's fine, right? And it's cool, right? Because it just becomes different, right? It becomes different. The only people that really didn't hold back much, people don't hold back much with people from their own culture, right? Because it's just there has to be a good vibe in the air though for that to happen. But at the end of the day, right? For example, like I've been with Spanish women before, right? In the same sense. Portugal and Spain, it's the same peninsula, right? The same peninsula, right? So you have Portugal on the side of the sea, right? And then like to the interior of the actual peninsula, you have Spain, and then France up, right? They are divided by mountains, right?
Yeah.
By the Alps. So it's one of those situations where even there was some holding back, right? But never with people from the same culture, right? Because it's just different, right? It's like, and it's good for you because like even if you don't know that person, that culture is so familiar for you, right? It's incredible how a feeling can have more impact than an actual more impact. The feeling that you felt all your life, right? That familiar feeling can bring out of you so much good in a situation that you're not familiar or comfortable with because you're in another country, but now you have somebody with you, right?
Yes.
That either went through the same thing or is legitimately in the same situation as you.
Yeah.
Right? Is that sense of safety, that sense of like belonging, right? That sense of like, because for example, like I'm not saying like, oh, we met each other now, oh, we're gonna be friends forever, oh, like I met you now, oh, we're gonna build like a friendship that is gonna last forever. Oh my God, it's gonna be such a beautiful story. You came to this country like me and we didn't know each other, blah blah blah. No, it ain't a fantasy. I'm not talking about Disney. I'm talking about like real stuff. Even if in the future it's not like something like kind of like super like amazing. Now you have somebody that you can count on. And when I mean counting on, is like somebody you can go out to, right? You don't feel so lonely, right? In my case, honestly, I really don't bother. Honestly, I used to be very outgoing, but like once I knew what real peace feels like for me, which means like just staying in my own place without having so much noise around my head, in my ears, boom, 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 boom. Because I can listen to music in my own place without having to, like wait for somebody to change the music because it sucks. Or I can eat in my own place and I can make my own food, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. You control it.
Exactly. I'm in control, right? I'm in control of my environment, right? And I can do whatever I want. But for me, that really doesn't have much. But people are not me, right? And we're all different, and that's the beauty of the world. So right? Like going from one country to another and experiencing all the differences, all the differences on culture, on love, on food, on everything can be a really like terrific experience, can be really amazing, really brilliant and astonishing, and you can use all the adjectives you want to bring out the goodness of the experience. But at the end of the day, being alone in a situation like that in the beginning can feel a bit like stressful.
Yeah, it is. I've not been alone when I came here. I had family of my husband and my husband, but still the process of integrating in a different country, even though they speak Dutch here as well, and their own language, Papiamento, and English is also spoken, Spanish. So they're also here very multilingual. And so that makes it easier to communicate with people, but still to really understand the culture, I wanted to learn the language that the people here locally speak, so mostly in their households, and that's Papiamento. And at first I was more, I learned a little bit when I was in Holland, but I didn't really grasp when I was in Holland, and I learned the language a little bit. I did some classes because I want to understand my husband and the language as well. Well, my husband speaks Dutch with me, so he's really adaptive to actually my language, so that helped a lot. And but still there were some language barriers in the sense of how you translate literally from Papiamento to Dutch, and then became some misunderstandings, you know, between us. Like Papiamento has this way of, like, for instance, in English and in Dutch, you ask somebody, like, can you please give me that, pass me the tea, you know, like you're sitting by the table, you pass me the tea. But in Papiamento, if you say that, they say it differently, like get the tea. Like it's yeah, you can say like please, but usually when it's very casual, you say like it's a more like commanding type of way. And I could understand it, so I was like, hey, I'm not a dog. I said, like, you just have to, you know, because he translates literally from his language to Dutch. And then some misunderstandings comes, you know, and then that's like sometimes I think the challenge, that when two cultures come together, maybe they know the language, what you're speaking, but then they translate it in their own language to the language that you communicate with. And there can be like misunderstandings. So that was in the beginning. We had a lot of fights because of these kind of stupid things. Yeah, like misinterpreted actually each other, but we mean it well, but it's still, you know, it doesn't come across that you want to, and the accents on the way of the temperament. Like, I'm very temperamentful, and he also comes from a country that is also more expressive in that sense, the more Latino, you know. That helps, you know, that you're more open with expressiveness. So that felt really good. But when I came to live here on Aruba, then I really understood the language. I tried to speak it as much as possible, and that felt really vulnerable. Like, you know, you have to get over yourself, like to be laughed at, to be like, oh, you say it differently. But that's what I did with my husband in Holland. Like, hey, you say it wrong, the spelling, like. And now I felt it the other way around, you see? Now I was in his shoes. And being the one that says things not correctly, and taking like having the courage to try to speak the language. It takes courage, you know. But then what I noticed is I worked. I started when I just came to Aruba. I went in the workforce. Let's say that now I have my own company, but I started with just a job, and there I could understand the people better, and I could really understand the culture better. And that's, you know, I think that is important, that that you know why people say the things they say, or what's behind the whole their demeanor. Like, it's different than maybe your culture, and you think, well, your culture knows better, and it's best to do it more healthy way of thinking. Like, for instance, like the Dutch way is more, you know, Western and modern, whatever. But then I think, no, there is like definitely a middle there that you can learn from both sides. But you really have to be into the culture to really understand. And and then I understood my husband better, and his family as well. Since I'm living here, I understand like why they say certain things or why they do certain things. And I think that definitely helped us get closer as well as a couple. So, but yeah, if you're just arriving in a new country, or you have to try to adapt, that definitely brings a lot of insecurity sometimes in your confidence. Like, wow, the most of the people would tell you like, no, that's not the way we do it, or that's not the way we think, and then you have to try to how you say that, put yourself in their shoes. What you said, like you have to adapt to maybe a certain way, you know, what you said. You have to hold back, and I also had to hold back. For instance, here on Aruba, in Holland, we are very more outspoken, and we ask questions. We ask people questions much faster, like Americans also. Americans are, I think, more. They make contact very easily, like just random conversation. And I love that, by the way. That's like really my style, like just to be in a conversation spontaneously. But on the other hand, Arubans are more in that sense. If you ask like too personal question, or that can come across very nosy. So for me or an American or a Dutch person, you would say like that's showing interest in people, you know? Yeah. It's like I'm polite here. I want to know about you. I'm interested in you, and I see it that way, and maybe we see it that way. But for Arubians, I had to get used to, like, my husband had to tell me, no, don't ask too much. That's not polite. And then, you know, I had to hold myself back. Yeah, I still do. Like certain conversations, I'm not totally myself, like in that sense, like I don't ask anything that comes to mind, or whatever. What maybe we see as not really personal is just a daily conversation about your family, like, are you married? Like those kind of questions. Are you married, or do you have kids? Smiths, with some people, you have to be careful, like especially when you don't know them. You know, that's like going to the territory. But in Holland or in the States, they're more like, and do you have kids? You know, and it's different. Yeah, because I when I perform for a lot of people from the United States, and because my mom is American, I grew up also a little bit with that, you know, that spontaneity. How do you say that word?
Yeah, spontaneity.
Spontaneity. Yeah. So I could a little bit see what you're saying, Bruno, that you have to hold back a little bit in maybe your personality or the habits, you know, the custom, to also be respectful for that culture. So yeah, I think that's also important. You know,
I'll tell you something, and then I'll pass it to Irina. I don't hold back. I between you and me, like, and Irina will then say, I don't hold back, honestly. With all, I say it so many times, like, honestly, like but it comes from, like, you see, it's just like what I learned is that, like, it always comes from a place of good, and that is where people can misunderstand it, because maybe the way you ask, or the way you say it, or the way you try to mean it, right? If you're forcing something, people won't be like, the majority of people, they won't be like, you know, the person is making an effort, you know. No, the majority of people won't be like that. The majority of people, they'll be like, why is he or she forcing anything? Like, chill, bro. Like, relax.
Yeah, that's also other side of it. Yeah, that can.
They will actually take it a little bit as, like, offensive, right? Because they think they're the problem, right? And then they see you as a problem, and they don't want to fucking deal with you anymore. So the thing with me is, like, I'm always myself. It always comes from a place of good. I just pay attention to the words I use. There's no swearing. There's no being rude, no being offensive, no nothing, right? Because even if the culture is different, it's still a sunny country. So it's still hugs and kisses and, you know, like, I love you very much. I love you too. Oh my God. No, right? Which is completely different from the UK, right?
Yeah.
So
they're more affectionate. You mean
more affectionate.
You live in Morocco now? You said, right?
Yes.
So they're very more affectionate people, like more warm, very hospitable, right? Also, they share. That's what I've experienced with Moroccans when I grew up there.
Yeah.
So in Holland.
You went to Morocco?
No, I grew up with children in a neighborhood that were from Morocco, like families.
Oh, really?
And so I remember that's their way, you know. But you have to be close to the family, maybe. But in your when you're in Morocco, I think it's very different than when they come to a different country.
I mean, the behavior is completely different, right? But Moroccan people in here do not behave the same way they behave in Europe.
You see,
it's completely different. In fact,
because
there's a lot of women.
Put a wall, you know, protection as well. Like you can, they feel like they have to be somebody else, maybe, and they're maybe not.
Exactly.
I
mean, honestly,
you were talking. I'm sorry.
No. That's all right. Don't have to apologize. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of women who, you know, the hijab, like the over their head.
Sure.
They take it out when they go to a lot of women. They take it out when they go to Europe, and then they put it back in. And they're like, they put it back in, you know. I hope people can see me without it. You know, like, but in Europe, they just take it out. They don't care. There's nobody there to see them.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there is one or two things wrong, but that's for me, not for them, right? And people are the highest authority out of their life, not me. I'm the highest authority out of my life, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I will tell you something. A thing that really works with wanting to have people that are not from your country, like a good thing that helps people from in the country that you are to be on their good side, is to adopt certain words, certain expressions, certain behaviors, right, that are typical from that country, right? Because by doing that, you're showing them that you like the country, that you like the culture, right? That you have opened yourself like a flower to all the customs and habits, right? To some expressions, and that is impossible for somebody who is mentally sane in their mind, right? To not like that, right? Because every single person likes when an overseas person goes to their country and they are wearing typical things from the country, typical clothes. They're appreciating the typical food, the typical habits, the typical customs, right? Everybody likes, unless you don't regulate well from your mind and you have some loose screws, right? Because that happens also with a lot of people. But those people, honestly, who cares, right? But that helps a lot. That really helps a lot. It helped me a lot. And that's the thing, like, this goes beyond having people from different cultures, you know, because this is a universal thing, right? As much as people can, you know, think different from culture to culture, you know, and stuff, everybody likes to see people that are not from their country go into their country and behave accordingly and like their country, right? Because nationalism is not that big of a toxic thing anymore that much in a lot of places, but it's very positive, right? When nationalism is positive, right, and there's kind of a balance, right, between not being like racist with the overseas people that go into the country and appreciating them for the service that they're doing to their own country, right? It's beautiful. Everybody can coexist. Everybody can behave accordingly. Everybody can have just a beautiful time. You're in your life, I'm in my life. Yeah, sure, we're from different status, but that does not mean nothing, because, you know, you're in my country, you are respecting me, right? And there's nothing more that we can ask for, right? A lot of, like, you know, football, right? Obviously, you know football. You know, you're from Dutch, so you know PSV, you know Ajax.
Ajax.
You know, obviously, you know Utrecht, right? So it's just like like a lot of football fans, they can go like like hooligans, right? Which there's not much anymore, but there's still a lot of them. Whatever. Like for example, Belgian people from Antwerp, right? For a Champions League game, they went to Porto in my country, right? And they just started destroying everything, coffee shops and everything.
Wow.
Right? And that's really bad. Right? That's not good. Right? But that's horrible, right?
Yeah, it is.
But yeah. But like for example, but you see, it's just like going back. That was just an example. That has nothing to do with the conversation anymore. But you see, like showing people that you like the country by adopting certain behaviors that those people also have.
Yeah.
Right? Certain interactions, right? Or eating certain types of food, right? Or like for example, here in Morocco, I'm gonna give you this note. Here in Morocco, usually on Friday, people eat couscous, right?
Oh, nice. I love couscous. Yeah.
Yes, but it's a different type of couscous, right? They do couscous in their own way, right? In Portugal, couscous is not like here. Couscous is different. And if you go on a Friday to a coffee shop and you eat couscous, right? As an overseas guy, right? And then like the guy brings you the food and you go to the guy and you say Bismillah, which means like may God be with you, I believe. Oh, listen, the guy's gonna be like Alhamdulillah and stuff, which means like may God be with you and stuff, like and they're gonna love you. And they're gonna love you. Right? So
I haven't heard that word for such a long time. That's the word. I've heard that word so many times. How you say that now? Bismillah.
Which one? The last one?
Yeah,
Bismillah.
Bismillah, yeah.
Bismillah.
They say Wallah, like at the end.
Yeah, because Allah
Bismillah.
is their God.
Allah is
Allah. God, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
Any action towards God usually has always the word Allah in the end of the actual word, like Tabarakallah, Alhamdulillah, Bismillah, Sibmillah. That's all like towards God, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
nice.
And even on love, right? And even on love especially, but on love is different. On love is very different. On love, I'm not gonna talk about Morocco because obviously.
Yeah.
But it's just like, in a lot of countries, right? Depending, because if you talk about love, then you talk about religion, right? And when religion comes to the conversation, it's a conversation that you don't want to have with a lot of people, right? Because that's also culture, right?
Yeah, and exactly in some cultures the religion is very dominant in their culture, integrated, and more the Western world is less, like more individualistic. And I feel like it's good to have godly values. Like I believe in God as well, and I feel that it's also a good. He gives like principles in the Bible, that for couples, and that's based for any culture. Like it's like principles that you can grow your love together, the acceptance, the patience. Like the virtues of love. That's also in the Bible, and I think that can be a very strong connector in a marriage if you're on the same page as well in your values with God, and that can certainly it had effect on my relationship. I think because we're not perfect, and it's so easy to say like, okay, well, forget it. We're different people. It just doesn't work, and forget we're married. It's just a paper. But I don't feel that way. We both don't feel that way. My husband and I were on the same page with that. Like, divorce is not like how do you say that? A light thing for us, and there things happened in our marriage that was not always nice, and trust things, and yeah, we're also human beings. Even though you try to do the right thing, sometimes also the pressure of life. Oh yeah, also going to moving different country, adapting, having new, like all these things, a different situation in jobs or whatever. It can all have effect. Financial things can also have effect, like bring stress. And how do you cope with that? And I think as well, like I see that too in like these countries, and people would say like maybe it's extremist. Okay, well, some maybe for the outside, but I think for people that really value their values, like and put God first in their marriage, for example, I think that it can be the Bible says like it's a three woven cord. You have the man and the woman and God, and when the cord is all together, it's more stronger. So yeah, I would say like that definitely, even though culture barriers, still the language of you can say religion, but it's more like a way of life, a way of thinking, what you adapt, and the belief. And I think belief can really be also a connector in marriage, no matter where you come from, the backgrounds. So yeah, that's my experience in it. So
Irina.
Yeah. Irina, yeah. We haven't heard you too much. You love traditional marriages, a relationship. That was very interesting. Like you don't like the 50-50, and my husband has to provide.
Never, ever.
Yeah.
No.
So that's definitely, I think, a trend topic. Like for years now, I see that also on YouTube. The masculine, the feminine, and what is the who's the provider, and yeah, you have also your strong values and your way of thinking.
Yes, and you know what? For me, it's interesting. Like when we were talking about the languages and everything, like the jokes. This is like something that if I'm joking in my language, only the person who speaks my language would understand me. This is like, also something that very unique and very, like something that I always like thought about, right? Because if I'm having a good time and we are joking around, and if, like you watch the same, like movies, we know the characters, and like there is a double meaning to that. And even when you try to translate, you lose the sense in translation, right? So it's another thing, but again, obviously it's not, like the main, the main characteristic of why would you stay, like just with the same culture. My thing is that everybody has to explore what works for them, and sometimes, like you could come from different cultures, but if you have the same values, if you have the same beliefs, if you have the same goals, so everything is possible. And I think sometimes it also depends how the families are open to that, because there are still families that only see their kids to be married to the same culture. And again, I think it all depends how independent and free the kids are and what society they are raised to. And obviously in like in America, it's like the country of immigrants, and it's like like especially New York City is like a melting-pot. So there are all different cultures, and obviously people are adapting more to like different cultures and different relationships and different marriages. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting. And just I remember something from my brother's story, because my brother, we have 10 years apart. He's 10 years older than me. And when when he graduated school, he heard the army. He went to Siberia because like the money was there. It's like here, you go to work to Alaska, you're gonna make much more money. Because nobody wants to live like, yeah, exactly. So the same thing with Siberia. So he moved there, And then after a long period of time, they started to have like these corporations together. So because there is the oil there, so they were having Americans coming on board, they were extracting oil there. And when they introduce their culture, Americans, they are more like reserved people. Again, it all depends people from people, but majority of the culture, they're like very reserved. They are not as like Russians, Ukrainians, hug me, come to me, I'm gonna feed you. You're not gonna leave my place until you are fed, you drink, you sleep, whatever, right?
Very warm.
A little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And I remember my brother was telling the stories, we taught these guys to drink vodka. They were having great time, with the Russian vets, and in the steam room, and being with the girls, it's like completely different, dynamics. So people, even though they come from this, reserved cultures, when they come into that atmosphere where everybody's welcome, where everybody's hugging, feeling like friends, so they kind of feel safe and they open up and they act differently.
Yeah. Sometimes, it needs a little vodka to come out, not everything.
Absolutely.
Shut.
To make it, just very relaxed and random. But
takes the edge off, yeah?
Exactly.
We're not promoting any booze drinking alcoholism on this channel, but it's
yes, right.
A little bit of vodka.
But just saying. Oh, Virginia, you know what? This is the time for your song.
Oh my goodness. I was hoping you forget. Like, this is what I do every day, but when you ask me on the spot, I just blank,
Okay, just sing something.
I hear a song there, so it's like I hear the song and then it's like, okay, I get distracted from the tone.
Yes, 1 second. That's right. I forgot about that music. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is for you. and Bruno, you have to sing this for the next girl that you meet, yeah? Okay.
Sure.
I got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I got the month of May. I'm singing it very low now. Well, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way, my girl, talking about my girl. And then, my girl. I'm totally off key. Beautiful. I'm like, whatever. I sounded beautiful. Like I was like maybe on some vodka, but usually I don't sound like this on the mic, Like,
no, it was beautiful. You have a beautiful, beautiful voice, and it was so great to have you with us on the show. And Virginia, come any other time. You're always welcome. Come for any episodes next year. It was interesting because when we were getting for the show, this is like backstory. Virginia is texting me. So tell me a couple of questions, what I have to prepare myself for. And I said, Virginia, you are going to just enjoy yourself. It's going to be just, free flow. It's fun. It's entertainment, no questions, no answers. It's just let's have that casual conversation and let's see where it's going to lead us. And look at that. You even performed.
Oh, I was awesome. No.
Yes, you were.
Oh, no, it was so nice to be nice. That's an understatement. It was very cool
fun
to be on your show and to see you guys do something very different and just being yourself on camera, because that people underestimate that. Like when they think, I'm going to do YouTube, I also had to get used to, being in front of a camera, talking in a camera, doing a show, like officially having a podcast or something, you present to people in the world. You have to have like a you have to get over yourself sometimes, you know, that like it takes confidence. So I think it's really cool, and what you guys doing. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Big hearts to you guys, and good luck with everything, the whole journey.
And always, like I said, come back anytime. And for our listeners, you know, thanks for listening. Hopefully you got some good things about cultural differences in love, but just go and explore. Don't listen to us, just do your own thing. Just enjoy yourself, right? Because life, you know, like we have to be our own guides, we have to be our own you know, authorities, what we are doing in life. It's good to listen to everybody who says something, but it's up to us. We are the ones to make that decision. We are gonna make these choices because it's our life. So everybody, just live it to the fullest. Enjoy yourself. Do what makes your heart sing. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time, Virginia.
Oh, see you next time.
Yes, absolutely.